What's up, gangsters? It's a fine fall day out here at Rube Goldberg Enterprises. And if you keep up with much of my silliness, you might know that a few weeks back I made a video of just cool new tools. And I just seem to be in a mode of collecting cool stuff that comes in the mail lately, so thought I might as well make another one. So here you go, Cool Stuff Part 2. Okay, so let's see what kind of cool stuff there is to look at today. So I went full-on tool whore recently because I convinced myself that I was going to need some gizmos to do some projects. And, of course, that's how addiction works, right? We come up with all kinds of ways to rationalize what we think we need. Anyway, so I've been working on my Hasegawa 148th Phantom. And if you've ever looked at the heat shield behind the exhausts on a Phantom, you know that it's got a bunch of rivets with these large, they look like flat washers around each one of them. They're actually screws, they're not rivets. Anyway, near as I can tell, those flat washers are somewhere between 1 and 2 inches in diameter. And Hasegawa doesn't do a damn thing to give you those in the mold. They just give you normal little divots, like any other molded in rivet. And there's 48 of them on each side, I think is right. And they are definitely a key aesthetic feature of the Phantom. And so I wanted to reproduce those. And my first thought about how to do that was going to be that I would punch out little tiny plastic discs, because I have the excellent UMM punch and die sets that I've used for that sort of thing very often. And here they are. I actually have 2 sets of them. Now I love these punch and die sets. I think these are perfectly designed, because unlike some of the other ones on the market where they have a plexiglass top and the die portion is steel, and the plexiglass is what guides the punch, and basically it makes sure that it goes through the hole correctly. On most of them, what you see is that the guide piece has holes the same diameter as the punch itself. So that means if you've got a 1 millimeter punch, you've got a 1 millimeter guide hole, and you've got then a very large diameter shank on top of that. And that's just an engineering fail, because where you go from the large diameter to the small diameter of the punch, which is like this, for example, except imagine the punch sticking out, an inch. Well, that's a huge stress concentration right there. And because you're using the small portion of the punch as the guide, now this thing can wave all around in the breeze and get jacked up when you hit it a little bit off center, as you inevitably will. And it represents a huge opportunity for failure or breakage. In fact, I know one of the guys in SMCG, Colin Arthur's, got a set of them where they showed up in the mail already bent and not even close to on center. So it's just a bad design. And so I really like this UMM punch set because the guide is the size of the punch body, and the punch itself, you can see, is on the bottom plate. So, and the punches then can be really short and stiff. So they just pop in there like that, and there you go. But the one thing that I don't like about these, actually there's two sort of there's one design problem with this. And a lot of you have already figured that out, and that is because this is not transparent. You can't use this to punch a hole in a specific place or punch out a disc in a specific place like you might be doing if you were going to punch out, say, a dial from a decal sheet for an instrument panel, because you can't see where to put it. So that's a problem with this type of punch and die set, I admit. This would be 100% perfect if the top portion were made out of plexiglass. And they could do that, but obviously then you'd have to have a way to fasten the bottom portion to it, and it would be a little bit more expensive. So for just brute force knocking little discs out, though, this thing is absolutely perfect. But what stinks about it is sometimes it's hard to pull the punch back out of the material after you've knocked it through there. And so you can see that what I've done on some of my punches is I've used some epoxy sculpt to put a little grab handle on there so that they're easier to pull out. So anyway, that is what I had on hand when I was thinking about punching out 100 1mm diameter plastic discs. And I was not looking forward to it because I actually use my little antique anvil as my hammer when I want to use that punch and die set. I don't want to do that 100 times. So I knew that Northwest Shortline made this cool thing called the SensaPress, which is basically a miniature arbor press. And you can see it is pretty damn snazzy. Micromark also makes one that's like 20 bucks less, but it's never in stock. This thing is about $100, so not cheap. But it is very cool. And I knew that because the arbor on it had a bore at the end and a set screw, that it would hold a punch as it was being withdrawn from the material. There were a couple problems though. One is that the bore on the end of this ram was 3/32, and these punches are nominally 1/4 inch in diameter. The other thing was how to attach the die of my UMM punch and die set to the base of the press. Not a problem if you've got machine shop facilities, which I don't anymore, and all my punch and all my tap and die stuff is in storage. So what I did is I just took it all down to my local machine shop buddies and had them drill a hole in the middle of each of these punch bodies, and then put a corresponding 1/4-20 threaded hole in the base. So that what I basically do is I just put the punch body on here loosely, insert the punch into the ram that I want to use, run it down into the hole that it's going to go through. This one's a little bit loose. And get everything centered up, and then tighten the hold down screw on the punch body. And I've got a washer under there to create some space so that when I start knocking little discs out, I can just, slide them out from underneath there with a paintbrush or something. So this gives me everything I need to be able to mass produce little tiny discs at a pretty high rate of volume. And you can see, let me grab some thin stock here. This is just fun to do. Because now I can just, maybe, if I can ever get it in there, I can just bonk. Oops, wasn't quite lined up there. There goes one. There goes another one. There goes another one. See? I can just knock those things out about as fast as I can say it. And there's a couple of them right there. So, pretty cool. Much faster. Definitely worth the time and money that I spent to get it all set up that way. One thing that I did that made it a little bit more of a hassle is that the pattern diameter on these UMM punch bodies is not identical between the two of them. So I actually have a couple of threaded holes in the base that allow me to use either one of them. So once I got all that done, though, of course, I decided that I didn't want to do the rivets on the Phantom that way anymore, because even at 5/1000ths of an inch, the plastic discs were just too thick. They just didn't look good. And even 3/1000ths thick beer can aluminum didn't look good. And I ended up revisiting my original idea, which was to use something like a beading tool to emboss a ring around each of the molded in rivets and do it that way. And the reason that I had gone away from that strategy to begin with was because I could never get the damn thing centered. I couldn't, it just looked stupid. But what I did is I took a piece of brass tubing and I put a sewing needle that fit tightly in the middle inside of it, in the inside diameter, and glued it in there so it couldn't flex, and left just a tiny little titty of it sticking out of the end of the brass tubing, which I also chamfered to make it sharp. And you can see that now that little titty sticking out of there basically causes the punch to be self-centering. So these aren't perfect, but they aren't bad at all. I'm pretty pleased with them. And it was, and you can see right there what the little plastic discs look like. Even sanded down thin, they just didn't come out looking as good. This, by the way, is the portion that doesn't get seen because it's hidden by the nozzle, and this is going to be in flight and tilted over like this. So that was kind of my area to experiment. But anyway, so there you go. I mean, you could call it a waste of money and effort to get my punch press set up to knock out hundreds of little tiny discs, because I ended up not needing it for this project. But there will come a time, I have no doubt, because I've used these punch and die sets to make little plastic rivets for a lot of other things. So anyway, it's all good. I'm glad I did it, and now I have it. But speaking of punch and die sets, I did also decide while I was ordering, stuff, to go ahead and get the Micromark punch and die set that allows you to position it wherever you want it, because it's got a plexiglass top. And this one is also, in my opinion, far better designed than the competitors, because the guide hole diameter is the same diameter as the punch itself. And you can see all the different size punches there. So it's just an inherently better design. This thing was not cheap. It was like $50, which is a lot for such a simple little gizmo. But hey, it is what it is. The tool whore don't care. She just wants nice things. So speaking of other nice things from Micromark, I also decided it was time to get a photoetch bender, which I'm sure is going to be the least used tool that I've ever bought. I've never felt like I needed one until now, but I am going to very soon start on the Thunder Models 1/35th scale case VAI tractor. And the floorboards are photoetch, and they're a little longer pieces than normal, and the word is you got to have a bender to shape them correctly. So hey, that's all the justification the tool whore needed to hear, and there you go. So I spent like whatever it was, $50 on this thing, and hey, now I have it, so it's all good. So I'm going to put these two things away, and then I will show you some interesting stuff that came from my buddy Matt Bull at Hobby World USA. Okay, we'll need a paint mule for these items. This is interesting stuff. Matt has recently gotten fully connected with the folks at GSI Krios, which, if you don't know, are the folks who make all of the Guns Mr. Hobby products. And he's been getting access to a lot more of their stuff. And so he recently sent me some samples of some new things. And they've been sitting here on my bench doing nothing and just waiting to show you guys. So these are cool. These are Mr. Weathering Color, which I can't read Japanese, but they are for realistic modeling, guys. And let's see. Pretty sure that they are, let's see, I don't know. Doesn't really give you any instructions. But I believe that what we're looking at here is basically an enamel wash. And hey, look, listen, there's a little bead in there to help us shake it up. So that's cool. There's two colors of that here. There's this stain brown and this ground brown. And I'm not exactly certain what they want us to use these for, but again, if it's an enamel liquid, hopefully I can get this open without breaking out the pliers. Guess not. Okay, all right, now I got these open and shaken up, so now we can stop wasting time and check them out. So, first disappointment is that there is not a brush. I thought there would be. There's kind of a thing in there. Definitely not a brush. So that's kind of a bummer. But I guess we can't have everything, right? So let me just fish out a junky brush here and let's see what this stuff does. So how about a bit of a brownish stain right there? So I don't know, that's pretty dense. It seems a little denser than what I would expect for a wash. And you can see it doesn't just immediately run down that panel line. So that's kind of interesting. So again, I'm not really sure how these are supposed to be utilized, but maybe this will give us a better idea. Okay, let's check out the darker brown one and see what that looks like. Pretty dark, almost black, in fact. So, again, it's fairly dense for what I would expect from a wash. So that's the kind of thing where I might take a sponge and maybe work it around like that. It definitely puts a bit of a stain on there. And assuming that it's enamel, and we'll let it dry here for a bit so we can kind of see what it does with some mineral spirits on it. But again, assuming that it's an enamel product, and it can't really, I didn't do the old smell test. It doesn't smell like anything, so this is interesting. It doesn't smell like anything, so I'm not at all sure now. I just assumed that it would be an enamel product. So now I don't know, but it dried pretty quick. And when I rub it with my finger, it definitely, I can rub it around. It creates a stain. For sure it creates a stain. That's not a bad effect. That's almost a little more like a filter. It came off on my finger. But again, it does not it does not smell at all like mineral spirits, so that's kind of weird. I'm going to take and put a little bit more of it over here, since I've still got some on this brush. And we'll let that dry. And then see what happens to it. I'm going to clean the brush with mineral spirits now. And see, I have no idea. It's coming off the brush in the mineral spirits just fine. So, who knows? Weird. Alright, well that's drying. Let's check out these other two bottles. These are Mr. Color, Mr. Hobby, Weathering Color Filtering Liquids. Shade blue and spot yellow. So what I'm assuming that means is that, like a filter, it gives us the ability to alter the tone of a color. And I don't use filters very often. It seems like some people think, especially in the armor modeling community, that filters are supposed to be like a standard part of the recipe. But I think of filters as being a correction. Kind of like with a photograph. If I want to give a photograph more of a warm tone, for example, then I might put an orange filter over the whole thing. It's something that I've only used a few times because, again, it was something where I wanted to make a correction. So we'll see what happens. This is also looking pretty dense. It's thinner than the other stuff. You can see it running along this panel line. And so that's interesting. It definitely wicks out faster than the other stuff does. But it is dense. Denser than I would expect a filter that you're going to brush on to be. And again, maybe this is not how you're supposed to use it. I don't know. But it's kind of interesting. We'll let that dry. And I'm not going to mess with the yellow one. Same thing. We'll just let those sit there and dry for a minute while I talk about something else. But I got that out of the brush with mineral spirits pretty easily, so no big deal there. Okay, other things sitting here on my bench. I got this in the mail the other day. This is a bracelet, a very cool bracelet from Malcolm Childs at Models for Heroes. And he had to send me this extra one because he sent me some other stuff, a bracelet and some stickers and stuff. And I got paint all over the first bracelet he sent me. And he was like, hey, show it on a video. And I was like, I can't, dude. It's got paint on it. So he sent me another one. Anyway, if you're not familiar with Models for Heroes, what they're doing is really cool. They're based in the UK, and Malcolm started this as an organization designed to help veterans who are dealing with depression or PTSD or whatever by giving them a hobby. And so what he does is he gets kits and supplies donated to his organization, and they go and they do model building days at I guess places that would be the equivalent of what in America is the VA, the Veterans Administration, or other organizations like that where veterans can go for therapy or that type of thing. And they take the kits and supplies and they get these guys building models and basically give them a little bit of an escape from whatever's going on in their life. And I think that's really cool and a really worthwhile cause. So if you're in the UK or have some ability to support Malcolm in his efforts, then I think that's definitely a worthwhile thing to do. Okay, so anyway, let's check out a couple more things. This thing is nowhere close to dry yet, and I want to give it the proper time. Again, I'm not really sure how we're supposed to work with this stuff. let's just take some of this part right here, and I can see that if I went ahead and started rubbing it out, that it definitely stains. And this is from my K-color test, and I think that the flat coat that's on this right now is, well, to tell you the truth, I can't remember what it is. Anyway, it's got a flat coat on it, but might as well just go ahead and work that around a little bit. It doesn't just rub off and dry out immediately. It's, you know, allowing me to continue to work it into that surface. You can see most of it comes off on the paper towel. This part over here is dry to the touch at this point. Let's see what happens if I work on that with the paper towel. It comes off with some rubbing, and it definitely created a stain and then left some material in the panel lines there. So I like that. That's pretty cool, because being able to rub it off of there dry is kind of a different deal than if you were using, if you had to use mineral spirits to get it off. And I kind of like that effect, where you can see that it gives you some nice tonal variety there. Because of the way that I've had to rub it off of there. So check that out. That's actually pretty cool. So I have no idea. Kind of smells, the blue stuff smells a little more like mineral spirits, and it definitely acted more like it when it wicked out into those panel lines. I don't know, in the jar, I guess it has a faint smell of mineral spirits. So that's probably what it is, but I kind of like that. I didn't expect for it to rub off of there quite so easily, but I like the way that it created a, you know, it left a darker blue in the panel lines. I don't know that I'm, you know, I mean, you'd have to really be serious about shifting the tone of your color to do that, but hey, if that's what you need to do, and maybe this is an option. Let me go back to the sponge thing. Get a little bit of mineral spirits on there. See what happens when we work that around like that. It does come up with the mineral spirits, and you can kind of use the sponge to create that more, to create a more mottled effect. So I don't know, you know, if any of you guys know more about this stuff, then I'd like to hear. I've got just a little bit of mineral spirits on this paper towel, and you can see that most of it came up there. So I guess you could conclude that either of these, the filtering liquid or the weathering liquid, could, for all practical purposes, just be used like any other enamel-based panel line wash. regardless of whatever it actually is. That's the result you get, and I kind of like that. It's a little bit different from Tamiya's panel line wash because once that stuff dries, you pretty much have to use mineral spirits to get it to shift. And it's also a bit different from the MIG ammo panel line washes because they shift. I mean, you can wipe them right off after they're dry very easily. And so that's part of why they're so easy to use as panel line washes because they're almost effortless to remove, and they don't leave much of a stain, if at all, in the areas where you wipe them off. So this product almost seems to be sort of somewhere, I don't know, in the middle between the Tamiya panel line washes and the MIG stuff. So interesting. I don't know. I'm going to tinker with that some more. Okay, anyway, enough of that. Let's check out some other fun stuff. I have kind of lost my mind on working with figures. I've been doing the Industria Mechanica Cosmonaut number 3 for quite a while now. She's turned into quite the high maintenance project, but I couldn't resist going ahead and getting the next one in the series. Actually, I think I misspoke. I've been working on Cosmonaut number 2, which is the female. This is Cosmonaut number 3. And I am pretty excited about building it. I'm not sure when I'm actually gonna start this one. Oh man, Michael Fichtenmeyer, you and your frickin' peanuts! I swear, if I were king, I would make the damn things illegal. So, anyway, yep. Let's see if I can clean these out enough. Okay, I don't feel like cleaning all this out right now because I'm not getting into this kit anytime soon, but you can see just by looking at a few of the parts, this is the Industria Mechanica coolness that I already knew was going to be inside here. The molding on these things is pretty good. I don't have a huge amount of experience with resin kits at all. I've built exactly 2 of them so far. I built the Stan robot from Futuristic Robots, and then like I said, I've been working on the other Cosmonaut from Industria Mechanica. And the molding on them I think is really good. I think the molding on these is not quite as good maybe as the Futuristic Robots kit was, and the engineering and the fit on the Futuristic Robots kit was amazeballs. And the Cosmonaut anyway has definitely proven to be a bit more challenging, but you can see it's a hoss. I mean, at 1/8 scale, that's the dude's pack that he's holding in front of him there. At 1/8 scale, this is going to be quite a large project, which is fun, I think. It's a whole... I mean, at this point, I've done basically a couple of 1/48 scale figures, a 1/35 scale figure, a 1/32 scale figure, and a 1/20 scale. And I was secretly working my way up to doing one of these big ones because I saw them a long time ago and knew that I was going to want to, and so I've been trying to work my way up to it. And doing a figure that's this large has a whole different set of challenges and fun things than the tiny figures do. These are so big that they make their own shadows, so they almost automatically look cooler without having to do all kinds of crazy shading and blending and some of the real high contrast stuff that a lot of figure painters do. So lots of fun, very cool results, and I'm looking forward to getting into that. In that same bout of losing my mind, I decided to get this. This is a bust from Young Miniatures, which I don't know. I was unfamiliar with these guys until just recently, and Ian Candler was posting pictures of one of Young Miniatures' new busts of an RAF fighter pilot that was just really cool. And I thought, man, that looks awesome. And several people have suggested that it would be a good way to, have a larger scale figure that would provide all of that fun with, shading and so forth, but without necessarily all of the assembly hassles. So the first challenge, though, is going to be to get this damn box open. Okay, finally, that was an ass whipping, but got it open. I got this off of eBay from a guy apparently who carries them in Tulsa. So it only took a couple days to get here, and this is the first time I've looked at it. So let's take a look. This thing was about $70, so not cheap, but I am immediately impressed with the level of detail and the quality of the molding. So that's cool, man. I think this is going to be a lot of fun to paint. The big challenge I've already figured out with these resin things is sometimes the parting line where the soft tool comes apart, and I don't see anything crazy on the head here, so that's good, because that's a place where it would be a challenge to clean that up. And then here's the body. That's kind of nice. They've given you a place to drill a hole for, using a post, putting a post to mount it on. I've got to get a wooden base. I think I'll try to find a nice little wooden base for it. But I mean, look at the fidelity of those details. I mean, that's really, really nice. Even the zipper there is in nice relief. That's pretty good. I don't know if these are done as 3D printed masters, the way that the Industria Mechanica kits are, or if these are hand sculpted. But either way, that is impressive. So this will be a fun project. I like the fact that it's literally got, let's see, about 8 parts. So hopefully it'll be pretty quick and easy to put together, and I can get to the fun part of the painting. And it looks like it'll be easy to do all of the painting of the body and treat the head as its own thing. So that definitely makes things a little bit simpler in my experience, which with figures is, granted, very limited. Oh, and look, there's the post that you mount him on right there. So that's nice that they give you that. So very cool. I'm looking forward to getting into that. That'll be a lot of fun whenever I decide to do it. Okay, one more thing. Let's see. I got a box in the mail today from Patrick Perales, who is one of our SMCG members, and he's got a cool thing going. Apparently, he is connected with an outfit that I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with in Europe called Modelblau Koenig. And I'm sure I totally pronounced that wrong, but whatever. Anyway, he is I guess going to retail kits, and he has access to everything that those guys offer. And MBK USA has already got a Facebook page set up, and they're selling on eBay, and I guess they've got a regular website. I haven't looked, but anyway, Patrick has twisted my arm hard enough to get me to agree to build something that is represented by their product line, or one of the product lines that they carry. And so anyway, it arrived in the mail today, and I am attempting to get it open. And yep, I told him not to pack it in peanuts, and he was like, well, but I'll do the cellulose ones. Yeah, well, they're better because they are biodegradable, but they are still an enormous pain in the ass when it comes time to unpack the box. I hate these things. I know that makes me sound like a grouchy curmudgeon, but I don't care. Peanuts suck. But that's alright. We'll get this box out of here. And, oh wow, this is interesting. Okay, I told Patrick, he asked me what I wanted to build. And I said, well, I've thought about building like one of these Russian trucks, because they can be civilian and they give you all kinds of weathering opportunities, and a chance to just, you know, go all freeform on that kind of stuff. And so I was like, well, yeah, you know, I'll build a Russian truck. Why not? Nobody makes any cool American trucks, which really is annoying to me because there's lots of them. So anyway, this is the one that I picked. I have never built a TACOM or TACOM or however the heck you say it, take home. I think I'll call them take home from now on because it makes me think of like Chinese food. Anyway, so I've got the take home Russian Kraz 260. I've never built a Russian truck. I've never built a take home kit, and I have no idea what to expect. He asked me how long I thought I was going to need to build the thing, and I said, you know, I think I better take a look at it first, because I have no idea how complicated it is. And yeah, it's complicated. Lots of parts. Let's see what this says here. Does it tell me? It's got a sprue map on the outside, or pictures of each sprue on the outside of the box, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sprues, and a photo. Sorry, little battery crisis there. Anyway, doesn't say anywhere on the box lid exactly how many parts, and I'm not going to get into breaking all this out and, you know, looking at everything right now. That'll be for an actual build review video kind of thing dedicated just to this project. But I took it on because I've been wanting to do a truck, and I clearly have a truck. Just flipping through these sprues, this reminds me a lot of the AFV Club AEC Matador kit that I built, at least most of, when I did my crazy Spitador thing last year. Looks like lots of detail, crisply molded, same color plastic as the AFV Club stuff, and it looks like a pretty, you know, complete set of parts for the running gear and all that. Maybe not quite as detailed, but still looks pretty cool. So hopefully this will be straightforward and fun, because that's what I want when I get talked into do something like this, Patrick. And he is even sneakier than I thought, because clearly there is another thing inside this box. I said, you know, send me a truck. And there's more stuff in here. Oh, let's see. This box has been, oh wow. This box has been beat up by our friendly postal carrier. There you go, Patrick. See what happens when you trust the... Anyway, so there's also this 1/35th scale Panzerkampfwagen Panther II. Some kind of German tank thing from Amusing Hobby. Yeah, I don't know a damn thing about German tanks or tanks in general. I told Patrick when he said, hey, you want to build something, some armor kind of thing? And I'm like, dude, I don't know anything about armor. I'm probably not the best guy for that. Clearly, he was not listening. Because there is yet another kit in this box. Oh yeah. This one's gonna be a door prize, because there is no freaking way I'm building this thing for anybody for any amount of money. IDF notch mow wagon whatever doghouse late APC. Yeah, I've seen dudes build these things. This one is by Tiger Model. I've seen dudes build these things. I think this has like a bazillion parts. I will take a look at it at some point and do a little video of like an unboxing or something. But yeah, you see all that, like whatever that is, that our armor. Yeah, screw that. I ain't building it. Not happening. Sorry, Patrick. I don't know why you sent this thing to me, but yeah, ain't happening. Anyway, there we go. That's the pile of cool stuff that's on my bench right now. Okay, I thought I was done with the cool stuff, but I forgot a couple of things. This is something else that came from Matt Bull. And I don't really even know what to think about these. They look like they might be watercolor pencils, Mr. Weathering Liner, but I don't know. So let's check them out real quick and see if we can figure out what these things are all about. So I don't really know. Let's just go straight for it and use one of these to draw on a sample piece and see what happens. It definitely will leave a mark. This is a nice matte surface, which if you've ever used watercolor pencils, you definitely have to have. The lead just will not leave any kind of a mark effectively on anything that's even a little bit glossy. Whoops, I got my handy dandy watercolor pencil sharpener here. So let's see how that works. It's a little bit of a challenge. I'm not really sure if you're supposed to, I don't know if you're supposed to do it that way or not. I'd like to be able to get a sharp point on it though, which is kind of hard to do. I suppose if I was really serious about it, I could just carve it with a knife and make a sharp point. So that one gives us a little bit more of a rust tone. So I guess if we had a good sharp point on them and we made a real concentrated effort at coloring in a controlled fashion, that they could be used just like watercolor pencils to create little chips and scratches and things. I've got a little bit of water here. Let's take a Q-tip and see what happens when we use a little bit of water to kind of work that around. Not much. It doesn't come off and doesn't move. Doesn't seem to shift much at all. So definitely not watercolor pencils, because if it were a watercolor pencil, you would definitely see the effects. And you'd be able to do things like this, where you just dip it in water and then you'd be able to create more graduated kind of shading, but it doesn't really seem to work that way. It just creates lighter marks than we made before. I keep saying we. I gotta stop doing that, because it's not me and the bench fairies, it's just me. So I don't know what to think about that. I don't like the way that looks, so what happens? It seems kind of waxy like a crayon, so let's see if a little mineral spirits will get rid of it, because I definitely don't like that. Yep, comes right off with mineral spirits. So that kind of, to me, kind of confirms what I was thinking, that it is more waxy. So then I wonder what happens now if I color directly on that where I've got mineral spirits. It goes on easier. Definitely does that. So maybe there's some way to almost kind of treat it like a paintbrush with enamel on it. You could maybe use it to do some effects like that and create some discolorations kind of that way. I don't know, it's kind of interesting. I'm not sure I immediately see the utility of these things, but maybe I'm just not thinking hard enough. I don't know. But anyway, that's what they are. The next thing that I got that I forgot to show you, I don't know if you guys remember the last video like this I did a month or two ago, whenever it was. One of the subjects that I talked about was the fact that I'm trying to find a better solution for close-up vision magnification, because my Optivisor requires me to be so close that I have to lean over and really get my face right on top of whatever it is I'm working on, and that causes problems with my back and so forth. Anyway, so I had bought a pair of dental loops from a company called New York Microscope, and I don't remember how much of that story I related in the last episode, but you can get these surgical loops in different focal lengths, and those that I got were, I think, 2.5 power with a with a focal length of about 8 to 10 inches, and it just didn't seem right. I couldn't get comfortable with them, so I decided to return them, and I was doing the polite thing. I was well within the 30 days. It had taken them forever to send them to me. In fact, I had to call them once to remind them that I had an order in, and then they finally sent them. I got them like 3 weeks after I placed the order. And so I was still well within the 30-day limit, which it said very clearly in print on my invoice that I had 30 days. Anyway, so I was doing the polite thing and cleaning them up, and I was wiping them down with a rag that had a little bit of Windex on it, and something happened where there was a flaw in between the layers of the Lexan on the lens. If you don't know, one of the things that defines shatterproof glass or shatterproof Lexan that's used in things like safety glasses is that it's a laminate of 2 layers of the glass or the plexiglass or whatever it is, with a membrane in between it that is a clear plastic film. And that clear plastic film is what keeps the glass from flying apart if it fractures. And that's what makes it shatterproof glass or shatterproof Lexan. Anyway, there was clearly a flaw in the layers of the lens on the safety glasses portion of the surgical loops, because the Windex went right in between it and crazed the membrane. Anyway, I explained all that to these guys, and they were like, "Oh, well, you damaged it." And I was like, "No, I didn't damage it. it was defective. That should never happen with Windex. Anyway, long story less long, I ended up going round and round with those guys. They tried all kinds of ways to deny that they were going to allow me to return them for a refund. And it was a major hassle. I'd even told them I was willing to do the 20% restocking fee, no problem. Anyway, they were real jerks about it, super rude. And I've got all the emails I could show you guys if I felt like it, where this guy that owns the New York microscopes was just a complete asshole about it. Deny, 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 deny. But finally, I had enough evidence on my side that there really was no way they could continue to take that position. And they had included the actual supplier, which is a company called Meiji, I don't know, it's a Japanese microscope company, and the distributorship is in California, and that's where those loops were actually shipped from. And they included those guys in all the emails, and I was merciless. Anyway, they ended up giving me my money back. In the meantime, I had gone to a company called Schultz Optical and ordered some different ones and they were a company that Matt McDougall had done business with, and they were super, super nice, really cool. And they sent me some 2.5 power ones with a, I think it had a 10 to 14 inch focal length. And I tried and tried, and I just couldn't get next to them. The depth of field was really small. The field of view, the width of the view was basically down to two little circles, like you were looking through some tiny binoculars. And I couldn't get next to them. Just did not like them at all, and I just wasn't using them. So I contacted Schultz and I said, look, this is the deal. I just don't think they're going to work. I need to send them back. And they were really nice about it, but they said, listen, we've got a new product that we are going to, that's not even on our website yet, that has greater depth of field and a wider field of view, and would you like to try them? And I looked at them, and I was like, well, yeah, but they're a lot more expensive, because they gave me the price and everything. And they said, nah, you know what, it's no problem. We'll send these to you so you can check them out. And these are called the Fusion loops. And here they are. And so I'm going to check these out. These have a 340 millimeter focal length. You can see on the front there, they have that on there, and they're 2.5 power. So that is, I believe, that's, I don't know, that's the intermediate. Anyway, it's the intermediate focal length. So maybe that'll work. I don't know. I don't know, honestly. But I'm going to put these on right now, right here, live on camera. You saw me unwrap them, and I'm going to check them out. I don't know if this is going to be the solution. I'd like for it to be. We'll see. I don't have these adjusted at all. They have this little knob on top of them where you can adjust the width of the distance between the things, and you have to get that right for the field of view to be correct. And I clearly don't have it there. I'm going to have to tinker with it to get that right. So I don't know. Anyway, I'm not going to keep you guys on camera checking these out, but anyway, there they are. That's what they're all about, and don't know if they'll work or not. We'll see. There you go. Hope you guys thought that was informative and useful as always, and I absolutely appreciate you guys watching. Much love.